Hey, just give us a moment. We're setting up the stream for YouTube. Yeah, I can take you on, or I can bring you onto the stage right now. Pramod, if you would like. Here you go. Thank you so much for joining us, by the way. Really appreciate it. And I wanted to ask you.
Okay, all right, Brennan, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're all good. You're all good.
Awesome.
I wanted to ask you if it's okay for us to record this and post it on YouTube, just in case people miss it. Is that okay?
Yeah, should be fine. Should be fine. There is nothing proprietary about it. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you. We're just gonna wait just a couple more moments for. Oh, okay.
Mhm.
The stream is ready to go. See. Yeah. I think you should be good to go. People will keep flowing in after, but yeah.
Sounds good. So it's we cannot make it interactive, right? It's just I go through the entire slide deck and then we do the Q&A.
Yeah, sure. That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. No, I was asking. I mean, I can make it interactive as well. Up to you. Either
We
way.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think the best way would be Q&A. And then of course people
Mhm.
can ask questions along the way, but yeah,
Okay, I'll keep an eye out on the chat here if anybody drops anything there. Okay, I
sounds
gave this
good.
a try. Let me try if everything works. All right. So you can see my slides here.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, cool. All right.
Oh, now it disappeared.
Oh, I just made it slideshow.
Oh,
Just slideshow disappeared again. Okay,
oh,
let me give it a try again.
no problem.
Oh, yeah, I'm using this for the first time.
Yeah, it's
Screen.
no problem. It's no problem.
Okay, better.
Yep, yep,
All
we
right.
can see it. You're all good.
Cool. All right. Welcome everyone. I'll be walking through, building and productionizing Web3 applications. It's not a technical talk, but I'll try to cover what it means to build a customer facing app. Yeah, bit of intro about myself. I'm Pramod. I work at Chainlink Labs. I'm an engineering manager. My role encompasses building and scaling teams, a lot of hiring and people management. And on the engineering side, work with product managers, engineers, and to build a long-term roadmap for these products. And also on the execution, yeah, make sure we are executing well, we are hitting the milestones and marching towards the business goal. That's kind of what I do in a nutshell. All right, so let's get this going. Let me see. All right, this is a I took this two images from the web. The reason it's very simple and it covers quite a interesting difference between Web 2 and Web 3. If you look at the Web 2, this is the traditional world where we have a front end. Everybody knows that today JavaScript, HTML, there is a whole bunch of libraries to build front end today. There is backend. Similarly, there is Node.js, Python, Java, so many different languages to build backend as well. And we have a database. This is typically how Web 2 applications has been built. Today, it's much complex. I feel we will have like hundreds of backend servers. We'll have so many front-end apps. But yeah, this on a single instance, this is how it looks. Now, looking at the Web3, if you really compare what's going on here, we still have the same front end. There is no different. You can use React, Angular, or whatever you need. You can use the same front end. And then there is database. Here, you can consider the blockchain as a database. All it does is it maintains the state. You can store the variables. You can store the code. Yeah, it's very similar to a database in a Web2 world. So then there is a provider. So what it means is if you want to connect your front end to a blockchain, you need a JSON RPC, like a connector to connect to a blockchain. So yes, you can run your own blockchain node. This You can have your own infrastructure and run a blockchain node, but nobody does it today. There are providers like Alchemy, Infura, QuickNode. So you can use these providers. They give you access to the blockchain. What these providers are typically are they run their own copy of the blockchain and provide developers the access, and you pay them as you use them. So kind of a paper request. And then there is IPFS. If you see on the side, it's again one more P2P system similar to Ethereum. It's another P2P system, but it's more for file sharing. And the important aspect of this is, of the Web 2 to Web 3 is there is something called a signer here. So that is what we use MetaMask for. I'm sure everybody in the call have used it in the before. When you buy a crypto, or when you sell a crypto, or when you transfer crypto to your friend, you will have to go and sign the transaction. So MetaMask is the one of the popular, the tool on the, like a JavaScript tool that we use for signing transactions. All right. Let's move on. Any questions so far? Nothing. Okay. So yeah, how do you build a project, right? Hackathon project, yes, you can just hack it. You can put it in a, on a notes document. What is the scope, and you can start working on it. But really, when you think of a production environment app or a customer facing app, there's a lot of steps involved before you touch the code. So some of them is like product requirements document. Really, define the product. What is the product about? What are the product's purpose, the business goals, features, functionalities, and the behavior? Usually, we have product managers coming up with PID. It doesn't mean that engineers can't do it. Anybody can do it, but it's very important to have a detailed PRD. We call it product requirements document. Now you have the PRD. What's next, right? Next, you need to come with an architecture. What are the components involved, like the building blocks? There is a front end app, back end app, there is a database. All that is covered in the architecture diagram. Then the most important is design document. This is where you go much into a detail to cover all the aspects of the system. The servers, where do you want to deploy it, what blockchain nodes you use, all that covers in the design. So you have the building blocks. Now you need to come up with the user scenarios. A good example of a user scenario is you going to a sushi swap to buy a crypto. So that's a user scenario. Or you're going to Pancake Swap to sell your crypto. So each one of this is a user journey that you need to document, because this is what lays the foundation for development in the next stage and also for testing. Uh, okay, that we covered. Then you have the user scenarios as well. What's next? The next important aspect is the milestones. How? Because you need to build a product that takes about 6 months or 8 months or 12 months. You need to have your milestones, like a check-in checkpoints before, every month you can have a checkpoint, and that will show you how we are progressing. And also this will help you estimate the work, how much time it's going to take. Does your project takes 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, or in a year? So having this step, planning the milestones and estimates, is really important. Then the last step is engineering resource planning. How many engineers do you need? Really, it all comes down to what's your skill set, how many engineers you need, and are there any missing gaps? Do you really need to hire anybody? Are there any missing gaps? So yeah, this kind of start will give you a good idea of how to build how to come up with a real world application. And along the way, you keep track of the progress and plan for iterative launches. I strongly suggest, when you're building a production app, don't wait for the last iteration to launch it. Have incremental launches, and if you can find alpha customers or beta customers, bring them on board. Get the feedback early. That will really help you to speed up the development process. Okay. So that is all about planning your project. Next, this is interesting, where it gets interesting. So yeah, you want to build a blockchain project. That's well and good. But today there are so many types of blockchains. There are EVM blockchains, there are non-EVM blockchains, there are L1s, L2s, a lot of jargon out there. So how do you decide, right? There is, unfortunately, there is not a good way. You as an engineer have to go deep dive and understand what this means. For example, for EVM, there is Ethereum, there is Avalanche, there is Polygon. For non-EVM, there is Solano. And then there is L1 and L2s. L1 is layer 1 blockchains. L2 is layer 2 blockchains that are there for scaling purposes. Then there are private and public blockchains. For example, banks wants to use a private blockchain, whereas some DeFi protocols, they prefer public. Yeah. So how do you decide, right? So you can think of this blockchain specifics. The most important, I have captured a few. I'm sure there are a lot of blockchain specifics. Some of them are block time. How long does it take to produce a block? For example, Ethereum takes 13 seconds and Polygon takes 3 seconds. If you are building a dApp that is more real time, you can't use Ethereum. It takes 12 seconds for an interaction to a blockchain. And for the newer blockchains like Avalanche and Polygon, they're much faster. So that is one criteria where you can decide what kind of a blockchain you need. Another important criteria is the gas fees. How much are you willing to pay? For example, how much are the users willing to pay? For example, in Ethereum, if you make a transaction, you pay $5 to $8. Whereas in Polygon or Avalanche, you only pay like 10 cents or less than $1. So these are the criteria you want to consider when picking a blockchain. Another important one I like to point here is the finality time. Some blockchains take a longer finality time. That is blocks for confirmations. Yeah, that is another important criteria. Moving on. Next, okay, you figured out all this blockchain specifics. Next important thing is blockchain primitives. So, what are the blockchain primitives does the blockchain offers? The most important is data. Does the blockchain has access to data? Does it have Oracle solutions? When you say data, data means Oracle solutions. Like Chainlink is one Oracle solution. There is Pith. There is couple more Oracle solutions, but it doesn't matter which Oracle solution they use. Does the blockchain has access to data? That enables building DeFi protocols. Does the blockchain enables automation? There is any automation solutions. There is a cross-chain capability. Can we talk between blockchains? So this is all these things needs to be considered while picking a blockchain. I hope that makes sense. Moving on. Okay, you somehow figured it out. You said, okay, I will use Polygon. Let's take Polygon as an example for this talk. And what's next step, right? I strongly suggest every engineer developer to have a good understanding of the blockchain basics. It's yeah, it is building block for for building a dApp here. You need to have a decent understanding of block production, finality, what a transaction means, nonces, gas fees. There's a lot of jargons. It's really important to have a good understanding of this, how to use Block Explorer. Yeah, spend a good amount of time there. Front end is very simple. I mean, it's not very simple. I mean, it's similar to Web 2. There's not a lot of difference here. You can use JavaScript, HTML, CSS, the same stuff. You can use React, Angular. These are some of the dev frameworks. The only difference is you will be using the blockchain libraries with React and Angular. The most popular is the Ethers library. So if you import Ethers, you can speak to you can talk your front end app can speak to the blockchain. The next important thing is smart contract development. This is the crux of the problem in the Web3 world. Yeah, you need a good understanding of Solidity. You need to be able to write Solidity code for EVM blockchains. For non-EVM blockchains, you need Rust. For EVM, there is some of the frameworks you can make use is Hard Hat, Truffle, Brownie. Google this; it's very easy. There are a lot of tutorials on YouTube. But yeah, these using these frameworks will make your life easy for development, smart contract deployment, and testing. If you can get away with not using it, but yeah, it is quite a challenging to do everything from the scratch. And for some applications, yes, there is a backend. You can use Golang, Python. These are the two popular, but you can use any language for the backend as well. And last but not the least, you need a good blockchain node. I already mentioned about the blockchain node in my first slide. Blockchain node is an instance of a Polygon chain or an instance of an Avalanche chain. You will be connecting through Alchemy, Infura. There are many examples out there. All right, we covered the skills and developer tools to master a building dApp. How do you build it, right? How can you efficiently build a dApp? Yeah, in a real world company, we call it developer experience. It's really important to have a good developer experience. Good developer experience makes the developer efficiently build programs, efficiently build dApps. So how can you have a good developer experience, right? Use an IDE, some kind of IntelliJ or Visual Studio or Vim, whatever it is. Use an IDE with some code completion. It will help you a lot. And use a framework. Don't hesitate to use a framework. I already showed some of the frameworks in my previous slide. Use it. And the last important thing is dev setup. Please spend enough time to have your dev setup. It will really speed up your development process on a day-to-day basis. Make sure you have a good testing. You can test your stuff. You can deploy contracts. All this comes under the local dev setup. Next is okay. You have all the developer tools set up. Programming. Uh, it's a this is a much deeper topic, but I kind of put few bullet points here. Try to follow the best code practices. Today every programming language has the best coding practices, especially for solidity. It's really important. Solidity programming is almost like walking on a like an eggshell. It's very easy to crack. You need to be really careful of the code, what you write. Try to follow the practices, achieve 90% test coverage or even greater than that, and apply all the testing methodologies like fast testing, integration testing, soak, chaos, load. I'll go over this in the later stage, but yeah, try to do all kinds of testing and use existing library. Don't try to create the wheel again. There are so many libraries out there, open Zeppelin libraries, many popular blockchain companies have open source their libraries. Another thing to notice here is we are in a all this dApp development happens in an open source world. Nobody keeps their protocol private today. Every repository is openly and available. So make use of it. If a code that is already audited, pick it up and use it. Don't try to start from the scratch. Okay, we covered the programming. Next is the tooling. I think you might have already seen this. Have a good CI/CD, that is the continuous integration and continuous deployment, like for the GitHub, where you can whenever you push a PR, like a pull request or when a PR is merged, all these tests are applied to it so that you don't accidentally push a bug or don't accidentally push a bad commit. Cool. Next, I want to mention is the blockchain. Learn to use the block explorer. If you go to any of the blockchain and use their explorer, it's really important. You can see what happened to your transaction, what stage it is, and all that good stuff. Another thing about blockchain is, use reliable blockchain nodes, use simulated blockchain and test nets. Simulated blockchain will help you in testing. But these are some of the ways you can efficiently build dApps. One thing I want to call out is smart contract development is not easy. It takes a lot of time. You should have to be patient, and it's very easy. It's easy to write smart contract, but it's very hard to write secure smart contracts. I just want to emphasize. So when you're writing, like a dApp, the security aspect is very important. Cool. We covered the development aspect. Next comes the testing. I think some of you might already been aware of these. Unit test. Unit test is I can't emphasize enough. Please spend as much time as you can on writing unit test. Every single component needs to be tested as an individual unit, and try to scrutinize it as much as you want. First testing is a good way to apply to unit test, where it randomly generates values, and you can use it for unit testing. Then comes the integration, where you integrate different components and run it as a test suite. It's another important aspect of it. For example, once you build your front end, once you build your back end, you also have your smart contract working. That is the time when you start building your integration test so that you can exercise end to end of it. Then is soak testing. As the name suggests, you are soaking. uh, Deploy your smart contract on the production, soak it for a good amount of time, understand the behavior of how your behavior of the app, and look for vulnerabilities, look for issues. This is another great way to get that insight. Load testing, this is very common today. Everybody does load testing. It is important to see how your dApp behaves during a very high load and how it behaves in a normal load. Try to compare and contrast. And if there is any, memory leakage, or if there is a CPU going high, this is the best way to consider, doing that using the load test. Last but not the least, kiosk test. This is another popular in the blockchain industry, where we bring down systems and see how the app behaves. We create failures. For example, we bring down the blockchain node and verify how does the app behave. Yeah, we bring down the backend and see how does the app behave. So we create failure scenarios and try to see how the app behaves. So it's important we are able to recover after a failure. So that is the reason why we do chaos test. Okay, no question so far. Cool. I will continue. So yeah, what did we cover? We covered the testing. So I mentioned, writing smart contract is almost like walking on an eggshell. How can you write a secure smart contract? As I mentioned earlier, follow best practices. Can't emphasize enough. Please follow best practices, thorough reviews. Yeah, say, code reviews are an important aspect of development. Peer reviews, code reviews, pair programming, whatever it takes, but have your team review every line of code. And enhanced testing, we covered this aspect already. Do as much testing as possible. This is new to the Web3 world, third party audits. Actually, you can send your code to third party companies to audit your code. What they do is they review your code and look for vulnerabilities. Of course, they charge quite a bit of money, but there are quite a few good companies like Trial of Bits, DDub, Sigma Prime. They are some of popular Web3 smart contract auditing companies out there today. They take your code, they work with you for 4 to 6 weeks, they provide a result. Okay, this is how many bugs we find, and you pay them money. Another good way to identify smart contract bugs using audit competitions. So I think you have heard bug bounty, right? Bug bounty is where you put a bounty, say every bug you find, we will pay you $10,000. So there are forums like Code Arena where you can put your code out there and give out a bounty. For example, you can say, okay, my budget is 100K, and for every bug, I'll pay you like 5 grand or 10 grand. So that's another good way to audit your smart contracts. Just to give you guys perspective, just with respect to the code exploits, there have been $4.26 billion of hacks over the last few years. And just with one Ronin Bridge exploit, there was $625 million of hacks, $1 million of value that was stolen. So yeah, it is what it is. Since our code is public, there's a lot of time for hackers to really scrutinize our code. So we have to be really careful. In a Web2 world, there is, you keep your code in your own repo. Nobody has access to it. Nobody has visibility to it. But in a Web3, it's open source and it's also verified on chain. Anybody could go and look at your code and figure out a vulnerability and they can exploit it. So that's what has been happening. But we are getting better. These audits are helping and audit competitions are helping. Yeah. Cool. We covered the smart contract bugs. And yeah, what else can you do, right? I mean, other security considerations. After you have the someone who you managed to build a bug-free smart contract. What other security considerations you can have? There is a concept of multi-sig accounts. That means a single contract is owned by a multi-sig account. That really means is you need multiple signatures to execute a transaction. Why we use this, right? For example, you have a contract that requires configuration. If you accidentally if you misconfigure it, there could be repercussions. So we generally don't want to do it with one signature. We want to have multiple signatures, like 6 signatures. So if one person accidentally pushes out a bad config, there are other 5 people who verifies that and confirms, okay, this is an okay change to proceed. That is one reason we use multi-sig signatures. Another reason, if one address is compromised, still there is 5 addresses who can make sure we can apply the change. So there are a lot of benefits. Again, it's a very deep topic, multi-sig. I suggest you can read about it. Other security considerations are tooling. In when you're building a real world application, you cannot rely on your scripts. You have to use a battle-tested deployment tools, battle-tested smart contract verification tools. Yeah, invest in it. There are a few vendors out there, but you can build your own. But whatever you use, have it enough tested. And another important is config management. Have a good config management tool. Use GitHub. I would strongly suggest use GitHub. GitHub as a single source of truth. And yeah, use multisig along with a good config management will help you protect your production environment. Last but not least, disaster recovery scenarios. I can't cover this topic in this slide deck. This itself can take hours if you want to really go deep. But on a high level, some of the DR scenarios are, how can you come up with disaster recovery scenarios is using risk assessment. To give you a perspective, for a single production app, we spend a quarter to do the risk assessment. What are the risks? Just to identify the risk and then rate the risk. What is the probability of this risk happening and what is the impact of it? Once you calculate the score, then we put up the mitigation plan. Just going over this each mitigation plan can take weeks. So yeah, this is a very operational heavy process, but we have to do it. There is no way around it. Some of the risk might be what if there is a smart contract bug? How do you recover from it? What if a blockchain node is dead? How do you recover from it? What if your front end app is down? What happens then? So these are some of the scenarios, but there can be many, many, many more of these scenarios. And yeah, what else? There is another concept of break glass situations. That means during the disaster time, who is that one person who has the access to stop the bleeding? So we need to come with this break glass situations and how can we how can we recover? So we do something called war rooms or fire drills to figure out this break glass situations. And yeah, it's another way to protect ourselves. And there is something called emergency upgrades. I think you're all aware of it. If there is a bug or a patch on a production system, how do you apply the fix? How do you push out an upgrade? So yeah, these are some of the ways you can plan your DR. So there is no silver bullet to this. You have to do the due diligence. You have to come up with the run books. You have to do the fire drills. You have to do the dress rehearsals. That is the only way to fix to able to properly recover from these disasters. All right, how much time I have? You're like um, halfway into the session. Okay, let's continue. All right, so yeah, what do we cover? We covered the security considerations. What else can we do, right? In a production environment, monitoring and alerting. This is the most important, I would say. You cannot launch a product without proper observability. Observability, we call it ability to measure a system's current state using logs, using metrics, using traces. Yeah, you can do on-chain monitoring, that is the blockchain monitoring separately, off-chain monitoring, that is your monitoring differently. There is a really good way to do on-chain monitoring using events and logs. Most production systems do it, but yeah, you have to spend time to build the observability to monitor the on-chain state, and similarly to monitor the off-chain state as well. Off-chain state, I think, is very similar to any Web2 dApp. Using logs, using metrics and traces, you can monitor. But yeah, what you need to have a good end-to-end system health monitoring system. Using that monitoring system, you can build alerts. Say, for example, there is somebody trying to take some tokens from your token pool. Yeah, if you see the tokens draining rapidly, then you can get an alert and you can act on it. Another alert would be database number of requests to the server is rapidly increasing. That means somebody is trying to DDoS the app. Yeah, if you have proper monitoring, you can proactively identify and take action on it. If you don't have monitoring, there is no way for you to know what is going on. So yeah, invest heavily in monitoring, invest heavily in the alerting. This will help you to react to incidents when there is an incident. you know how to respond to it. You can detect it, you can triage it, you can analyze it, and you can remediate the actions. Yeah, we have a, I think in most companies there will be a team working on this observability. It's one of the critical aspects of building an app. Cool. We have covered a lot now. We have covered, like execution, efficiency of building code, smart contract works, observability. How can you make your users use your app, right? This is just the slide which I have put based on my experience. The cost of interacting with the dApp should be less. Like for example, if your smart contract charges $15 or $20 to use your app, nobody wants to use it. So why do you, well, some people try to build heavy complex logic into the smart contract that results in higher transaction gas. Try to keep the transaction gas as low as possible. When you say transaction gas, what does it mean, right? The amount of gas your users will have to pay every time they interact with your smart contract. Gas is a term used in the blockchain world for a compute. Every time you make a transaction, what is the amount of money you need to pay? So yeah, there are many ways to optimize it, to keep users pay very less gas. There is gas optimizations, there is fuzzing, but yeah, try to keep that in mind. And some dApps have seen they charge a high percentage of fees, like 1% or 2%. If you're making a small trade, like a $20 trade, it does not matter a lot. If you're making like a large amount of volume, like 100K or $1 million, this small percentage, like 1% or half a percent, can really add up. So try to have lower fees. That's one way you could attract users to use your app. Lower transaction fees, lower fees. And yeah, today still with almost 10 years in the industry, people still hesitate to use Web3 apps. The reason being the user experience. User experience is not simple. We need a much simpler, easy to use UX. So spend good time designing your front end so that people don't have to struggle using the app. There are some apps in the recent types like GMX and synthetics. They have a good user experience, but I've seen so many apps. They're really good apps, but the problem is it's not hard to use. If it's hard to use, how can you bring in people? First of all, they fear using a Web3 app. If it is complex to use, there is no way they're gonna come and use your app. So try to simplify the user experience. And last but not least, definitely there is, when you're building a app, open source the project. You can't have your GitHub private. That is not, people don't want to use your project. They don't want to use your app. You have to build trust minimized applications. For that, you really have to, put your code out there. This means anybody is free to use. They can look up your code, they can distribute your code. But yeah, that's an important aspect of it. Last thing I want to say is write good documentation. Provide clear documentation about the app. Write how to spell it very well, how to do this, how to do X, how to do Y, how to do Z. Have all these scenarios captured really well, and also have an FAQ section. The most frequently asked questions. A lot of the times, people keep asking the same questions over and over. It all takes like a few days to come up with a good FAQs. It will save a lot of your time. Yeah, so this I think covers everything. Yeah, the last step is how to get your users to adapt. So yeah, any questions for me? Brendan, yeah, this is the last slide.
Sounds good. Yeah, if anyone in the audience has any questions, feel free to send it. And otherwise, I have a couple of questions that I want to ask you, if that's all right.
Sure, Brendan, go for it. Yeah.
What innovations do you think can be built using the blockchain other than making unique aspects and like MetaMask, like exchanging currency and stuff like that?
Got it. That's a good question. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like DeFi has been the very popular, but there is a lot you can do about it. So, for example, insurance, right? You can. There are companies in Africa. They are building insurance on blockchains. Say, for example, people pull in the money, and if there is a rain on, if there is rain during that quarter, then the money goes to the farmer. If there is no rain, then the money is still in the. You can really code up a decentralized insurance. That is one example. You can also come up with voting applications. Everybody knows voting in many countries is rigged. You can use blockchain to build voting applications. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can build. You can provide access to banks in countries where there is not access to banks. You can tokenize assets. Yeah, and then there is no end to what you can build on the blockchain. You can yeah.
Mhm. Nice. Yeah, I heard a couple of things from one of our sponsors. At least, he talked about someone building a way to track it when you donate to nonprofits, to track the
Yes.
money that you donated and to make sure that it's going to what that you intended.
Yep, absolutely.
So,
So I think, see, for example, Uber, right? Uber charges 70% of the money that the drivers make. Uber takes it. They only give 30% to the drivers. I don't think so that's sustaining in the long run. There will be Ubers built on blockchain where it will be completely democratized, and there will be a good share of money going to the actual drivers. And why should why should Uber take the 70% cut? They are just an app. They are providing a service. So those are some of the things where we can solve. Like Ubers, Airbnbs. Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Um, I guess another thing I wanted to ask you is that is you mentioned earlier that you need to make sure that you do your due diligence in regards to risk management and all that. What do
Mm-hmm.
you think about the most recent, like I'm sure you know about the most recent blockchain crash where the confidence and all that stuff went down significantly after a lot of scams and stuff. So what do you think about like the current atmosphere of like negativity and what can we do to reduce that?
Yeah, that's a very philosophical question. Yes, there has been there, there I can say there's so many good projects out there. There are equally number of scams out there. So yeah, I mean, there is I think regulations is good. Some of the countries are introducing regulations on like tokenizing assets, on creating tokens or ICOs. I strongly feel we need those regulations. I know some people may speak against it, but there has been too much of scams these days. People have lost trust, so that can be a good way. And yeah, and be careful while using it. If it is a centralized company, if they're saying they're using blockchain, for example, FTX, right? It's an exchange. They were not a decentralized exchange. It's a centralized exchange. Everybody were using it. Then yeah, end of the day, they they took users' money and used it for something else. And yeah, they reached a stage of insolvency, and they had to go bankrupt. Yeah, please, I would suggest using decentralized apps. Don't use centralized apps. There's a lot of apps. They call it they call it they're built on blockchain, but they're really run by an organization to make money. So yeah, like education, Brendan, I think another area is next generation of students will be more educated, and they would not fall prey into these scams. I think there is this misconception where you put in $100, you can make $100,000 in like a month. That should go away. There is nothing like that where you can make 100x money or 200x money. So when they say that, when they see those scams, then people just rush in to put their money to get those gains. But as the industry matures, as there is more like students like you who understands blockchain well, we can avoid those scams.
Hmm. I'm curious, what sort of regulations have they put into place so far?
I'm not very sure. It's still, I mean, US is trying. It's not nothing come out yet. There's a lot of companies, a lot of countries working it out still. It has a lot of nuances. There will be, yeah, I'm not very sure about it.
Hmm. Interesting. Um, and I also I wanted to ask you if this is all right.
Hmm.
What did you do at your job as a manager of engineering teams?
So what?
I know you briefly mentioned like what I guess the other question is like what does your day-to-day life look like? Because you
Yep.
mentioned like you work out with hiring and managing, but what does the day-to-day look like?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I am here to take care of the team. So I want to make sure the team is happy. The engineers in the team are happy what they're doing. So that is important. If the engineers are happy, we can produce great products. I have a very good relationship with as an EM, you need to have the trust to work with the engineers to build that rapport, and yeah, really to make sure they're enjoying what they're doing. That is a big aspect of my job. And the other aspect is, the really you are the owner of the product. The buck stops with you. For example, for automation or any of the products I manage, you're responsible for it. End of the day, if there is a incident or an escalation, you're responsible for it. So really, making sure your production environment is healthy, you have all the alerts and monitors set up. Everything related to engineering aspect of it. Yes, of course, you have the team support, but it's almost like you are the owner of the product. Make sure it's scalable, and customers are happy using it. So that is a big aspect of it. And the last important thing is long-term roadmap. Work with the PM. Yes, we want to make sure the customers are happy using our product. On the other side, what is the next thing you need to build? What is the next customer ask, or what is the next feature? So really working with product managers, working with other senior engineers in the team to build that roadmap. Really, Brendan, there is no, a lot of things, to be honest. There is not a one size fits all when it comes to engineering manager. But I would say keeping the team happy, ownership of the product. Those are the two primary you know things that I care for.
Yeah, makes sense. It's very interesting. And I guess, well, this is outside of the two things that you mentioned, but you briefly mentioned it. It's creating a roadmap and like
Mhm.
understanding your customers. How do you begin understanding your customers? What's an easy way that any producer or developer can get to know their audience?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. I kind of briefly mentioned. So when you're building when you're building a DApp or an app, try to identify those alpha users or beta users very early. You don't have to, build a whole app and then try to find those customers. So uh, it really makes a big difference getting that early feedback. You might be building something totally different, or you have the opportunity to pivot early by getting that feedback. That's one
Hmm.
way to get the feedback. Once your app is live, identify those set of customers where you have a good relationship with. Not everybody will be open to sharing the experience, but there will be some customers where you can build a good rapport, and you can check with them once in a while. Hey, how is everything going? Are you happy using our app? Can you give me some feedback? So yeah, that goes a long way. We have people called GTM. GTM stands for go to market folks. Their sole responsibility is they are like a liaison between engineer and product. So they work with customers. They're all on this Discord group. They will be on Telegrams. They will be on all these channels to answer user questions. So that is another way. If somebody complains, they come and tell it to us. Hey, this is this is what customer is complaining. We need to fix it. So there's yeah, we have a like a pool of people working in a large company. Yes, there are go to market folks. Solutions architects is another term they use. They are also helpful in getting that feedback.
Interesting.
Yeah,
As a product manager, do you work with the GTM as well?
yeah. We work with GTMs.
Um, How do
Yeah.
you manage to work with so many different teams? I feel like there's always so many different moving parts, and managing all this seems like a nightmare. What's the one way that you keep organized yourself?
There is no silver bullet, man. I think it is what it is. Yeah, as in yeah. You try to organize yourself, have a checklist of priorities for you every day, and start with the most burning thing, and keep solving that. Uh, yeah, it is what the job requires you to do. GTMs, yeah, it's a whole bunch of people, but you get used to it. I think it's been what, my fourth or fifth year doing this. So yeah, initially it was hard, but yeah, now I kind of get used to it. But I've seen a lot of managers use notes, like Notion document, and these documents to keep track of their priorities. Like Trello is a good tool. Yeah, use those tools. But really, it all comes down to you only have 8 hours in a day, right? Or 10 hours in a day, or maybe 12 hours in a day. Use your time the best way possible. Where can you make the difference?
Hmm. Yeah, that's good advice. And I guess I wanted to ask, how did you get to where you are today in the first place? Like, how did you start working in the blockchain? How did you start being a product manager? And yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you're an engineering manager, right? So yeah, I was
engineering manager. Sorry.
yeah, yeah, no worries. So I was working at Atlassian before I became that is where I became engineering manager. So a lot of these companies offer I forgot the name, some kind of program where they encourage senior engineers to step up and be like a temp managers. They will give you an opportunity, like a small team where you can showcase your skill, and you can be like a pseudo manager for a good 3 to 6 months. If you do well, that is a good way to show the management, yes, you are capable of managing a team. It helps in both ways, right? You yourself will understand, is this the right role for me? Because some engineers pivot into being architects, some engineers pivot into being engineering managers. So like companies like Google, or all this Facebook and Atlassian, these companies have this apprenticeship program. Yeah, that is what the word is, apprenticeship program, where they will train you, and they will put you through some process, and have a small team. So when you find such opportunities, if you're interested in management, yeah, just raise your hand and step up and take the charge. That is one way.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is. I mean, not all the companies has that, but yeah, that is one way. And I also another thing I would want to say is there are these courses out there, right? Harvard Management Essentials. MIT has some courses. Just approach your manager and ask, hey, I want to take this, and see if they want to fund you. If they can fund it, well and good. If even if they don't fund it, I mean, invest your time, and show that, hey, here I am, doing management essentials just to learn how to manage a team. So that is a good way to show the management that, hey, you're interested in being an engineering manager.
Interesting. So just doing it without any like
Yep,
previous notion that that could be a possibility. You just take a course
yeah,
and then talk to your manager.
yep.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and the last thing, this is even more important. Like these two ways, a lot of the times a manager leaves. Okay, you have a team, a manager leaves, there is a gap. Yeah, step up and do it. There is no better way. Yeah, if you don't have experience, say, hey, I think I am capable. You can show, if you have shown some leadership experience in the past on the technical side, they might be okay to give you the engineering manager role, if you are ready for it. So yeah, just don't hesitate to step up and say, hey, I want to do this. Yeah.
Interesting. Did you start out as a engineer in the first place?
Oh yeah, I started as an engineer in what, 2012, or even before that, 2010, 2011. I was an engineer for good 10 years.
Wow. I was
Yeah.
like 7 years old at that time.
Yes, yeah, you're making me feel old, man. Yep.
I'm just really young. I don't think you're old. I'm just really young. Just beginning, starting out. But yeah, I don't believe I have any more questions. If any of the audience has anything, feel free to plug into the chat. But in any case, is there a way that people can contact you if they're interested in hearing more about, like, if they have questions about the blockchain or being a engineering manager?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think you have my email, Brendan. Feel free to share it with everybody. I'm happy to help in the way any way I can. No worries at all. Yeah, I can. Email is the best way to communicate. Oh, now I'm now I'm good at Discord. Just because of this event, I've learned how to use Discord. I can also be available in Discord. Feel free to ping me here.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people in our generation use Discord, so it's probably a good skill to pick up before we
Yeah.
age up into the workplace.
I am a pro at it now. I have it installed on my Apple MacBook, and I'm okay. I can pull it off.
Sounds good. So we'll be posting. Oh, do you think I could also get your slide deck and to
Oh
post
yeah,
it into our? Yeah, we have a channel dedicated to all the slides and recordings and
yeah.
info. So
I will copy the
cool.
link and share it with you.
Cool. Sounds
Great.
good. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. No worries. Thank you, everybody. Bye bye.
Have a nice day.
Yes.